Okay, today we are going to talk about putting in the clock mechanism on your clock. This is a very simple task, and all we're going to do is just assemble it, and I'm going to go through the parts with you and just talk about some features that you can add to your clock after we're all done. So the pieces that you're going to need for your clock are obviously your clock itself, and then we're going to have the clock mechanism. Clock mechanism here, we're going to talk about this real quickly. You have this gold threaded shaft right here. This gold shaft is what is how we lock it into your clock so it doesn't move around. You have a white shaft that comes out of here. That is the hour shaft, so this is for the hour movement. We have a gray metal shaft that comes out here, and this gray metal shaft is for the minute movement. And then inside, if you look at your mechanism on the inside, there is a little rod on the inside. This gray shaft is hollowed out, and on the inside there's another shaft in there, and that's for the minute hand movement. We don't have a minute hand, so we're not going to use that, but you can add that option if you want to later on. So that is the front face of the clock mechanism. If I flip the clock mechanism backwards now on the back face, what we have here is we have, if this was a hanging clock, which ours is not, but if this was a hanging clock, we'd have the little hanger piece right here. Then we go down here, and this is the battery compartment. And the battery compartment, when we place our clock mechanism inside our clock, and on any clock, the battery compartment is always going to be on the bottom of the clock, because that's where going to be all the weight is, so it's going to want to always fall down to that direction anyway. So we're just going to automatically set our battery compartment to the bottom of the clock. And the other piece we have here is this little dial, this little knob right here, and that is how you would set your clock. By turning this, this will turn the hour hand. For every hour it turns the minute, or for every minute it'll turn the minute hand. For every hour the minute hand goes around, it'll turn the clock, or the hour hand, one hour, and so on and so forth, so you get your clock set up correctly. Okay, so that's the parts of the actual mechanism that makes your clock actually work. The other parts we have in here, we have a little brass washer that you will need. We have a brass nut that you will need over here. We have a small, called a cap nut. It's a closed cap nut. It's threaded on the other side in here. It has knurling on the outside here, so it's hand twisted in. And this is the cap nut. This is what we use if we're not using the second hand. There is another nut option that doesn't have a close or a cover on it right here, and we could use that one if we were using a second hand. Okay. Then we have our two hands. The longer of the two hands is the minute hand, and if you look closely at the minute hand here, this is not a round circle in here. It's not a square circle. It has straight edges on one side and rounded edges on the other. That actually fits perfectly onto the end of that gray shaft out here. And this is the hour hand, the shorter of the two hands. This one is a round. It has a split on one end. It's pressure fit, and this pressure fits right over the white shaft on here, and that'll fit that, so then that will be pressured right and fit perfectly. The hands I show, as I'm showing you right here right now, have a black side, but if you flip it over, there is a white side on these also. I don't know if you can see them on the white paper, but you have a white side and a black side. Does not matter which side you work with or anything like that. It's just what looks better with your clock. Usually the thing is, if you have a darker background clock, you probably want to use the white. If you have a lighter background clock, you probably want to use the black. The last piece I have here is this rubber washer, which I will explain at a later time. I just want you to know that as an option with the rubber washer here. So I'm going to take that and push that off to the side right now, and I'm going to start talking about how we put this together. So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to find your front face of your clock where your hole is, and like I said, remember the clock mechanism where the battery goes, that goes down. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run this through on the inside, place my shaft through so my battery compartment is down towards the bottom, and then what that should do is the shaft should come through the clock. Okay, with that shaft coming through the clock, now I take my small brass washer, place that on the shaft. I take my larger nut and I place this on the shaft. And right now, I'm just going to hand tighten it. You can take a little small wrench and tighten it down a little bit more as you want to. Just don't over tighten it, because these are brass washers, brass nuts, and a brass threading in here, which will strip out if you actually twist it too much. So once I have that on there, now we have our setup. Now I want to explain this rubber washer real quick. If you wanted to do a face clock with a CD or something like that on it, a CD, DVD, you know, your favorite music DVD, CD, your favorite game DVD, whatever it may be, what you would do, instead of putting these pieces on, you would put the rubber washer on first, then put your CD on, then place your two brass washer and your brass nut on to hold it in place. Okay, that will just give it so it has a good background to hold on to. Okay, so this is an option to do. You can get your own CD, whatever you want, and place that on there. Obviously, you're not getting those from me. You're not getting any type of CD from me. And if you want the rubber washer, that is something you can grab when you pick this up. Okay. Next step is we take our hour hand. That is the pressure fit hour hand. And I'm going to take this, and when you're handling the hour hand and put pressure fitting it, we want to make sure that all our pressure is just on this circle right here. Don't try to push on the hand, because when you're pushing on the hand, you're going to start bending the hand. You're going to notice that these are very frail, and they will bend very easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and slide it over, and I'm just going to take it and pressure fit that down on there. Okay, so now I have it setting up on the white. Okay, I'm not all the way to the back, but I'm most of the way to the back of that white shaft. The next one I take is my minute hand. The minute hand only goes on two ways. Okay, it's only going to go on two ways. It has to fit the shaft as it comes out here. So what you're going to do is, if it doesn't fall right on, don't force it. You got to turn your minute hand until it actually sits on your shaft. So it'll sit in two ways. It'll sit either this way or 180 degrees opposite of that way right there. Okay, so just pressure fit, or not pressure fit, just set it on there and it'll just sit there. It is very loose at this point. That's fine, because that's what this brass cap nut, or if you have a second hand, the other brass nut that you would use, will go on. So you take this brass nut. Now the key to this is, again, brass threads here. We have metal threads here, but the metal threads, since we have a flat surface on either side, we don't have threads all the way around the shaft. We only have threads on two sides of the shaft. So it becomes very easy to cross thread. So you put this on and get that on as straight as possible. And if it starts to turn very easy as you start twisting it, you have it on right. If immediately it is hard to twist, it's giving you back pressure already, then you're cross threading it and you got to readjust your piece. So now as I go and turn this on, my minute hand actually tightens up, and now I don't have my minute hand as wobbly as it was before. So with that, your pieces are all on your clock. The next step you need to do is just make sure that your hands are not bent in such a way that they're going to interfere with each other, so when the minute hand comes around, it's not going to catch the hour hand, and vice versa. So just make sure that your hands are straight out as best they can and don't interfere with each other. Once you know that, then it's a matter, like I told you on the back, I have the dial back here, and I can turn it, I can set the time, and I can go either direction, and just by turning that, and I can go either directions and set your time. So now you have the option, like I said, to put a CD or something like that inside or on as a face of the clock. If you don't want a CD, you don't have anything like that, and a lot of you are looking at it and go, well, you have no numbers around the clock. Well, you can get numbers, and you can get a false face, and that's where you would need this, or you can just buy numbers and you can place the numbers around the clock. A lot of places that you can get it is our Hobby Lobby, Joann Fabrics, Michaels, Menards, and Home Depot will have clock numbers. They will actually have it, and it'll be set up as, it'll be perfectly spaced already. You just attach the piece to your face. After you're going to have to remove these pieces here and attach it to your face and get it all aligned and set up, and then you can have numbers around. Reason why I don't have numbers for you guys is because there's a whole bunch of you in the class. Everybody has a different type of concept that they would like for numbers and what they want their numbers to look. I'd rather have you, if you want to put numbers on your clock or design on the front of your clock, obviously not everybody's choice is going to be Technology Education CD. So I would want you to go personalize this part yourself. You've personalized it a little bit by picking a stain color for your clock, and that basically is the extent of personalization that you were allowed in class. Now you can personalize this as much as you want in the front after this point. So with that, that is the complete assembly of the clock, or of the clock mechanism, and now you just put a AA battery in the back and it'll be ready to go.